Hello, this is Helen Mottee, and I want to welcome you to For Eternity.
I put my heart in your hands and you taught me to fly.
Hebrews 13 verses 1 to 3 exhorts us to let brotherly love continue. Do not forget to entertain strangers, for by so doing some have unwittingly entertained angels. Remember the prisoners as if chained with them, those who are mistreated, since you yourselves are in the body also. I would like to start today's episode by reading from an article posted by Christianity Today, compiled by World Watch Monitor, January 8th, 2014. It is headed, Number of Christians killed for their faith doubles in 2014 World Watch list. More killed for faith in Syria in 2013 than in whole world during 2012. Nearly twice as many Christians died for their faith in the past year than in 2012, according to Open Doors International's 2014 World Watch list. Open Doors International, a charity that supports Christians under pressure for their faith, said 2,123 Christians were reported to have been killed during the 12 months ending October 31st, 2013. That compares to 1,200 during the previous 12 months. During the most recent period, more Christians were killed in Syria alone than were killed globally in the previous year. The World Watch List, which annually monitors the media worldwide for all reported incidents, emphasises that this is the very, very minimum count, only those who have been documented as killed. Estimates of the total number killed range from around 7,000 or 8,000, according to the International Institute for Religious Freedom's Thomas Schumacher, to the lofty 100,000 estimate of the Centre for the Study of Global Christianity. Beyond those killed, the World Watch List recommends that 3 more categories of Christians should be considered. Christians whose death is never reported, Christians killed due to increased vulnerability, such as those in conflict areas, and Christians who died due to long-term discrimination. Taking these into account, as well as those whose deaths are reported by the media, the World Watch List suggests Schumacher's estimation is roughly accurate, although the figure may be higher still. Christians aren't always directly killed, but are so much squeezed with regulations and vulnerabilities that they just perish. Not at once, but in the course of years. If we would include them in the counting, it would be an enormous number of people. However, the precise number of Christians who died due to these factors is very difficult to quantify, according to the World Watch List. Not surprisingly, Syria heads the list of the countries in which the most Christians were killed for their faith, 1,213, followed by Nigeria, 612, Pakistan, 88, and Egypt, 83. Of the top 10, 6 are in Africa, with Kenya, Angola, Niger, and the Central African Republic joining Nigeria and Egypt on the list. The World Watch List states that the number of Christians killed in the Central African Republic is especially likely to have been underreported because most analysts still fail to recognise the religious dimension of the conflict. The list says the same is true of North Korea, where it is extremely difficult to get public information. Beyond the number of Christians killed, the World Watch List focuses upon other instances of violence, including physical aggression, threats, the destruction of churches or other Christian buildings, attempts to destroy churches or Christian buildings, the closure of churches or Christian buildings, house expulsion or destruction, kidnap for ransom or intimidation, sexual assault, arrests, and displacement. Considering only the sum of violent incidents recorded, Egypt tops the list, followed by India and Nigeria. I feel this report is not only helpful for those listeners who are tuning in for the first time, but also it is an excellent summary of what Christian believers are experiencing in Pakistan today. Let's journey there now and learn what it is to be a follower of Christ in Pakistan. Pakistan is ranked number 8 on Open Doors 2014 World Watch list. Let me read to you the top 10 countries where it is most dangerous and difficult to be a follower of Jesus Christ. Number 1 is North Korea, followed by Somalia, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, Maldives, Pakistan, Iran, Yemen. Here are some excerpts from the Open Doors website. The persecution engines affecting Christians in Pakistan are Islamic extremism and, to a lesser extent, organised corruption. Pakistan's Christians face both Islamic militant organisations and mobs that routinely and violently target Christians, and an Islamising culture that results in Christians being isolated from the rest of the population. Many Christians who can afford to leave the country are leaving. Some observers are talking about the Talibanization of the Pakistani society. The notorious blasphemy laws continue to have devastating consequences for minorities, including Christians. The newly elected Prime Minister is tiptoeing his way to please the strong Islamic extremist currents, so no initiative is to be expected from him. A literally devastating blow showing the growing extremism was the twin bombing attack on 22nd of September 2013 on Anglican All Saints Church in Peshawar, leaving 89 church visitors dead. Pakistani Christians have many reasons to be going to church regularly. Church in Pakistan is not just a place of worship for the average Christian there. It is also a place for social activities. As such, the church sphere is more than just the usual understanding of the collective dimension of freedom of religion. Women and girls are experiencing violence every day. Women and girls from minority groups especially are vulnerable and easy targets for rape and sexual abuse. They are easy prey and considered to be inferior people. Frequently they are poor, depending on landlords and employers, and even if they would dare to file a complaint with the police or through a court case, they would not get justice. Sexual assaults against underage Christian girls by Muslim men continue to be reported. Catholic NGOs estimate at least 700 Christian girls are kidnapped and forced to convert to Islam every year. Here is a report by Barnabas Fund posted January 2013.
Christians in Pakistan are under intense pressure. Discrimination, poverty and abuse are a daily and crushing burden, especially for Christian women and girls. They are often targeted because of both their gender and their faith, and they have little or no protection. It is one of the most dangerous countries in the world to be a Christian woman. Many Christian women and girls endure grievous abuse. Amber, a 12-year-old Christian girl in Lahore, was kidnapped by 2 armed Muslim men who held her hostage for 8 months. She was raped by her captors and forcibly married. They tried to convert her to Islam, but she bravely resisted. The blasphemy law in Pakistan forbids anyone from defiling the name of Muhammad on pain of death. The penalty for defiling the Quran is life imprisonment. Christians are very vulnerable to false accusations under this law and can lose their freedom or suffer brutal violence as a result. Shamin Bibi, a young Christian mother with a 3-month-old daughter, was arrested on 28 February and charged with blaspheming Muhammad. Her family believed she was framed because she refused to renounce her faith under pressure from relatives who had just converted to Islam. Asia Bibi, a Christian wife and mother, is on death row after being falsely accused and then convicted of insulting Muhammad. Asia has been in jail since June 2009, and she is able to see her children only twice a year because of the security risk to them. Ashik, her husband, can visit her only twice a month. She has to prepare her own meals so nobody can poison her. Barnabas Fund is helping Aisha's family. After her arrest, Ashik had to move their daughters round different schools because of threats to their safety. But now 2 of them go to a school in Lahore that Barnabas Fund supports. Isham is 12 years old and has made friends at the school. She wants to become a lawyer when she is older. As the husband of a woman convicted of blasphemy, Ashik would normally struggle to find work, but he has a job as a security guard in the school, which gives him a little income. He also receives food parcels from Barnabas Fund. Ashik prays with his daughters for Asia's release. He says,
I continuously believe in the Lord that Asia will be released one day. When this will be, I don't know, but I do live in hope.
Barnabas also supports the work of CLASS, a ministry that provides free legal aid to Christian victims of religious intolerance, as well as shelter and financial support for them and their families. Barnabas is also able to help Pakistani Christian women affected by violence. Our Victims of Violence Fund provides support to individuals, families or communities who have been singled out and victimized because of their Christian faith.
Asia Bibi was arrested and condemned to death for blasphemy. Let's listen to a November 2010 report featured on SBS News.
The world watches as a Pakistani woman waits to hear whether an appeals court will save her from the gallows. Asia Bibi, a Christian, was sentenced under a law that critics say should have no part in any modern democracy.
The grief and agony of 2 young girls who wait to see if the Pakistani government will execute their jailed mother. Whenever I see her picture, I cry, says 12-year-old Isham. This month, a Pakistani court sentenced Isham and Isha's mother, Asia Bibi, to death. Not because she killed, injured, or stole, but simply because she said something. Prosecutors say Asia Bibi insulted Islam and the Prophet Muhammad. They say the alleged incident happened when she was picking berries in this field in the town of Itanwali, just about 2 hours west of Lahore. Court records show Asia was sharing a bucket of drinking water with fellow workers, but when she dipped her cup, her fellow workers refused the water, saying it had been touched by a non-Muslim woman. Asia Bibi is a Christian. The women argued. Mafia Sitar and her sisters say they were there and heard Asia's insults. She said your Muhammad had worms in his mouth before he died, Sitar told us, a crude way of saying Muhammad was no prophet. The town cleric Kari Salam reported the incident to police, who arrested Bibi. After nearly 15 months in this jail came the conviction and the death sentence, per Section 295C of Pakistan's Penal Code. Whoever defiles the name of the Prophet Muhammad shall be punished with death or imprisonment for life. When I heard the decision, my heart ached, says Asia's husband, who denies she ever insulted Muhammad. He says death threats forced him and his daughters, one of them disabled, to flee their village. Human rights groups have long blamed Pakistan's blasphemy laws for persecution and violence against religious minorities, like this attack last year on a Christian village and recent bombings of minority Muslim mosques. Activists say the government has refused to amend the law for fear of a backlash from Islamist groups and their followers, who deem scrapping the law as un-Islamic. Pakistan's law minister did not respond to our request for an interview. Should Asia Bibi be hanged? In her hometown, the verdict? To death? A unanimous yes. The town cleric called Asia's death sentence one of the happiest moments of his life. Tears of joy poured from my eyes, he said. The cleric's tears in stark contrast to those shed by 2 girls who want their mother to live.
And from the Voice of the Martyrs newsroom, posted June 28, 2013. Asia Bibi, a Pakistani woman who has been imprisoned for 4 years under that country's blasphemy laws, has been moved to a prison that is much further from her family, VOM has learned. The transfer came a few days after Asia's husband, Helen Mottee, visited her in Sheikhupura jail, where she had been receiving treatment from the jail doctor. Asia, 41, has been sick, complaining of intense pain in her legs, shoulders and arms. The transfer to Moulton Jail means that in order for her family to visit her, they will have to travel around 5 hours instead of only 1 hour. The extra travel raises security concerns for the family, as well as making it more difficult for them to monitor her health situation. A sheikh reports that their 2 young daughters are discouraged by the news of their mother's transfer. Asia was arrested June 19, 2009, after Muslim co-workers began pressuring Asia to renounce Christianity and convert to Islam. Asia responded by telling her co-workers about her faith in Christ. Asia told the Muslim women that Christ had died on the cross for sins, then asked them what Muhammad had done for them, according to Voice of the Martyr sources. Asia told the women that Jesus is alive, but Muhammad is dead. Our Christ is the true prophet of God, she told them. Upon hearing this, the Muslim women became angry and began to beat her. Then some men came and locked her in a room. Police took her into custody and later charged her with blasphemy against the Prophet Muhammad. 17 months later, she was convicted and sentenced to death. To date, no Christian in Pakistan has been executed under Pakistan's blasphemy laws, but in several cases, extremists have murdered Christians after their release from prison. Asia's conviction and death sentence have brought international attention to Pakistan's blasphemy laws. Christians have called for Asia's release and repeal of the laws, while extremists in Pakistan continue to demand that she be executed. Prior to her transfer, Asia had told her husband that she is regularly praying in jail for her release and asked Voice of the Martyrs readers to pray with her. A sheikh told his wife what their 2 little girls were praying for. They said, "We are praying for those people who are helping us and who are trying to release our mama," a sheikh told Asia. "Please pray for Asia Bibi. Pray for healing of her body, encouragement to her spirit, and for her release from prison. Please pray also for Ashik and their 2 daughters." And finally, from Voice of the Martyrs persecution blog, dated February 12, 2014, perhaps Asia Bibi will be set free, her appeal granted, and the death penalty she was sentenced to thrown out by the High Court. But when? The years she has been in prison, separated from her husband and daughters, are years she will never get back, and no court decision can change that. For me, as I reflect on Asia Bibi's case, it crystallises the basic realities of Pakistan's blasphemy laws. And that reality is that anyone, but especially Christian believers, can be targeted, falsely accused, and imprisoned for blaspheming against Muhammad. And it seems the testimony of Christians is particularly rejected as false and not to be regarded. It is literally the case of you are guilty unless or until proven innocent. I would like to read to you from the Persecuted Church Prayer Devotional. Questioning the validity of any religious figurehead from Jesus to Buddha to Muhammad ought to be a basic human right. How else can we learn to discern truth? But in Pakistan, questioning the Muslim prophet Muhammad is not just frowned upon, it's dangerous. Consider Augustine Ashik Kingi Masih, a 26-year-old man who was convicted and sentenced to death on June 29, 2003. His crime? While talking with some acquaintances about religion, Masih admitted that he believed in Jesus, not Muhammad. He was jailed in May of 2000, assessed a fine of 50,000 rupees, the equivalent of US $822, the equivalent of 2 years' salary, and sentenced to capital punishment. He is one of 2 Pakistani Christians on death row for blasphemy. Masih's story is one of many tales of persecution of believers in Pakistan today. Attacks against Christians, including brutal murders of women and children, have only increased since the United States-led war in Afghanistan, which was used to justify a Muslim uprising against Christian believers. You would never know it from official Pakistan history recorded in government-sponsored textbooks, but the region boasts of a rich, multicultural past. Before the advent of Islam in the 7th century, the area was home to the Indus Valley civilization that is said to be one of the world's richest, most complex societies. Along with its regional neighbours, the country sat under the thumb of the British for many years, but quickly developed into a settled Muslim state in the late 20th century. In 1947, the region was split into India and the Muslim states of East and West Pakistan. The countries have fought 2 wars over the disputed Kashmir territory, and a 3rd war in 1971 resulted in East Pakistan becoming the separate nation of Bangladesh. In response to Indian nuclear weapons testing, Pakistan conducted its own tests in 1998 and is considered a threat to world peace because of its developing arsenal. What are the challenges and opportunities for the Church? We read, there are 3 areas of major concern for Christians in Pakistan today: blasphemy laws, the practice of bonded labour, and the rise of Sharia law. Blasphemy laws were introduced in the 1980s. Every Christian sentenced to death under them has eventually been acquitted, demonstrating the ease with which false charges can be brought under this legislation. But any attempt to reverse the blasphemy laws encounters robust opposition from Islamic fundamentalists. Even if released, Christians who are accused of blasphemy must go into hiding or flee abroad due to the fear of reprisal from Muslim fanatics. Many Christians are subject to the practice of bonded labour. While Christians make up less than 3% of the population of Pakistan, the Bonded Labour Union has stated that 60 to 70% of the country's bonded labourers are Christians. Many are indebted to their employer and cannot change jobs until the debt is paid in full. These workers are trapped in a cycle of debt because they cannot receive education and are withheld from other opportunities to improve their lives. Finally, there is great concern regarding the approval of the Sharia Act by the provincial government of the Northwest Frontier Province of Pakistan. Under the Act, Sharia becomes the supreme law in the province, and the Quran becomes the source of guidance for all future legislation and reforms. This is a dangerous development, since religious minorities will likely face increased difficulty to live in peace and safety. The injustice of Pakistan's blasphemy laws is not just being reported by Christian sources. Let me read to you an article written by Michael Buchanan entitled Being a Christian in Pakistan, which was posted on BBC Today, March 25th, 2014. The death of 16 people at St Dominic's Roman Catholic Church has dramatically highlighted the difficulties facing Christians living in Pakistan. The attack by masked gunmen in the eastern town of Bahawalpur on October 28th resulted in the death of 14 worshippers, their minister and a Muslim police officer guarding the church. Before this latest attack, I set out to investigate what life was like for Christians who live in predominantly Muslim countries and how they had been treated since this war on terrorism began. It's never easy having your voice heard as a Pakistani Christian. Even in times of peace, the simple fact is that this country is 97% Muslim. In times of war, that community is also very united. Down the bustling back streets of Rawalpindi lives Mukhtar Masih, a Presbyterian living among Muslim neighbours. 9 days after the attacks on the United States, his 13-year-old son Riaz tried to get 5 young Muslims to pay for some food they'd bought from his curbside barbecue. They refused, telling him he could get his money from the Americans, and attacked him. Riaz was eventually taken to hospital, but died within hours. Before the killings in Bahawalpur, Riaz Masih's death was the most violent attack on the Christian community since September 11. But there had been others. People had been beaten in Islamabad and Rawalpindi, and there had been reports of churches being attacked in various parts of the country. These attacks were blamed on hardline Muslims, encouraged by remarks made by some fundamentalist religious leaders who had told their followers that they should murder 2 Pakistani Christians for every Muslim killed in Afghanistan. The government's religious affairs minister, Dr. Mahmoud Ahmed Ghazi, told me that they were doing everything they could to promote harmony. But it's clear that in the eyes of some religious leaders, the inhabitants of the Christian colonies are very much second-class citizens. People who live there won't speak on tape, preferring to keep a low profile. They say relations with ordinary Muslims are fine, but there's always a worry about what the fundamentalists might do. At the nearby Church of Pakistan, the name for the Anglican community here, that worry is recognised by the Reverend John Ishad. He says that wherever the West is perceived to be taking on Muslims, whether that be Afghanistan or Iraq, there's a greater likelihood of attacks on Christians. The unfortunate use of words like crusade by Western leaders doesn't help this small community. They simply hope and pray that the tolerance of ordinary Muslims prevails over the zeal and bigotry of the hardliners. What an excellent commentary by Michael Buchanan. And whatever our personal political stance and our views on the war on terror and America's role on the world stage, we cannot close our eyes to the fact that whatever is played out globally between the West and Islam has its severe and tragic repercussions on ordinary people, especially Christians living in countries like Pakistan.
Out of the depths I cry, oh Lord, hear my voice. Let your ears be attentive to my cry for mercy. If you, oh Lord, kept a record of our sins, oh Lord, who could stand? But with Israel, put your hope in God. For with him is unfailing love, and with him is full redemption. He will save us from our sin. My soul waits for the Lord, and in his word I put my hope. More than the watchman waits, more than the watchman waits for the morning.
I'd like to share a report from the New York Times, the opinion pages, headed Pakistan's Persecuted Christians, written by Akbar Ahmed and published December 23, 2013. Akbar Ahmed, the Islamic Studies chairman at the American University in Washington, is the author of The Thistle and the Drone: How America's War on Terror Became a Global War on Tribal Islam. We read, "If ever there was a target for the Pakistan Taliban, I thought to myself, this would be it. Besides the 750 graduating students and more than 2,000 guests gathered on the campus of Foreman Christian College on November 30th, were the university's American rector and two of Pakistan's 5 provincial governors. Senior officials in Lahore had already warned the public to be vigilant. The police had information that the Taliban had dispatched suicide bombers to the city to take revenge for the recent killing of their leader, Hakimullah Masood, in a United States drone strike. Their targets would be senior government officials and foreigners, especially Americans. Foreman is Pakistan's leading Christian educational institution, now celebrating its 150th anniversary. Only 600 of its 6,000 students are Christian. What's remarkable is how fully integrated into campus life they are. Like many non-Christian Pakistanis, I owed my education to Christian teachers, both at Foreman and at my previous school, Burn Hall in Abbottabad, which was run by Roman Catholic priests. We loved and respected our Christian teachers, and they us. We never doubted that harmony and cooperation between faith groups were not only possible, but also completely normal. It was the reality of our lives. I had returned after half a century to my old college, now a chartered university, to receive an honorary doctorate. Once there, I found myself transported back to one of the happiest periods of my life. It was a different Pakistan, and it was a time of hope. Christians were very much part of the fabric of the nation. Times have changed. Today, Foreman is an island of tranquility for Christians in a troubled sea. With increasing frequency, Christians have been attacked and their churches vandalized. No one was taking lightly the seriousness of the threat at the commencement. I was told there were snipers on all the vantage points and security officers in plain clothes all over the campus. Yet, as if to insist on the normalcy of university life, the rector announced a new centre with the express purpose of bridge building between different cultures and faiths. Many Pakistanis are unaware of the role Christians have played in the nation's history. Although the Christian population is barely 3 million, or 1.6% of the population, as compared with 180 million Muslims, more than 95%, Christians have had a considerable impact, especially in education. Many of Pakistan's most prominent leaders, including the current Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, the assassinated Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto, and former President Pervez Musharraf, went to Christian schools. Christians also educated Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who founded Pakistan in 1947. Under Pakistan's constitution, Christians were guaranteed equal rights. The targeting of Christians comes amid a widespread breakdown of public order. The ordinary citizen, hearing stories of gangs breaking into homes and kidnapping people, thinks only of survival. Groups like the Pakistani Taliban have challenged government authority to the point where the rule of law barely exists in parts of the country, like the tribal areas of the northwest. While militant groups are frequently the culprits in attacks on Christians, a general anger against the United States has caused large numbers of people to target Christians, whom they associate with America as scapegoats. Christians have been especially vulnerable in cases concerning the blasphemy laws, which easily convert into a tool of oppression against them. Cases like that of the 11-year-old Christian girl arrested last year after being accused of burning pages of the Quran in Islamabad gain nationwide publicity. Easy causes celeb for those who are opposed to United States foreign policy in Pakistan or who believe that Islam is under siege from the West. This in turn makes it very difficult for public officials to intervene, even if they are inclined to do so. Government promises to reconstruct the homes of Christians destroyed by mobs and distribute aid are rarely carried out. Those Pakistanis who do speak up for Christians have themselves become targets of violence. In 2011, a governor of Punjab province who criticised the blasphemy laws was killed by his own bodyguard, who was then hailed as a hero. Senior politicians and the Pakistani elite have been complicit in the sectarian hostility because they fear that any of them could meet the same fate. Perhaps the worst blow to date was a deadly assault on a historic church in Peshawar earlier this year, in which 78 people were killed and 130 wounded. Little wonder then that there is widespread fear and uncertainty among Christians. There are rumours of entire families fleeing the country, many stranded in halfway stations like Thailand, awaiting official papers to emigrate. The situation of the Christians will improve only if the causes of Pakistan's instability are addressed. These include the breakdown of law and order, the dangerous gap between rich and poor, the ever-rising prices of wheat and sugar, the lack of jobs, and the conduct of the American war on terror in the region. Pakistanis also need to be reminded of their own history of religious tolerance. What they perhaps do not realise is that the protection and rights of the Christian community are more than a constitutional obligation. The situation of Pakistani Christians is a barometer of the health of the nation. Today, the signs are not good. Another excellent commentary. The situation of Pakistani Christians is a barometer of the health of the nation. May I say that I believe it's a barometer of every nation where the persecution of Christians is taking place. So far, we have gleaned that the situation of Christian believers in Pakistan is precarious, with many fleeing the country or living in hiding within Pakistan. And those who practice their faith openly are being targeted not only by Islamic radicals, but also by family members and neighbours who see them as a threat, not only to the Islamic faith, but to their own security. I would like to share with you a report put out by Christian Solidarity Worldwide Hong Kong, dated February the 7th, 2013. A Pakistani Christian man has died after he was shot 5 times last week in Balochistan. An unknown gunman fired at the 55-year-old on his way home from work. He was rushed to hospital in critical condition and died on Monday. Local sources said his Muslim co-workers had been pressuring him to convert, but he had stood firm in his belief in Christ. His colleagues' heated demands were accompanied by threats of dire consequences. The local authorities are refusing to heed the family's repeated pleas for justice. Organisations like the Masihi Foundation and Life for All have quickly condemned the murder. Acting on behalf of the family, they expressed their dismay at the lack of action by police and local authorities. Christian human rights activist Xavier P. Williams said, "This is really tragic. It breaks one's heart to know that an innocent has been killed for his faith. They threatened him various times, and we demand protection of lives and properties of the minorities in Pakistan. The authorities must ensure that the basic rights of the minorities are safeguarded." The article concludes by saying, 2012 was a terrible year for minorities in Pakistan. They were deprived of their rights and discriminated against in many ways. Following the burning of some 200 Christian homes by a mob just barely 5 weeks later, Mervyn Thomas, chief executive of CSW, said, quote, "We are shocked and saddened to hear of another terrible attack of this kind. While blasphemy accusations do affect Pakistanis of all faiths, cases against minorities routinely lead to the violent targeting of the wider community of the accused. It is absolutely unacceptable that local police did not take more serious measures to prevent this entirely foreseeable violence. Just as the handling of Rimshah Masih's case represented a step forwards, this situation underlines the huge amount of work that remains to be done. The lessons of past episodes of violence have still not been learnt. We strongly condemn these attacks and call upon the Pakistani government to take immediate steps to increase security in the area, to support those who have fled, to arrest those inciting and carrying out the violence, and to ensure that the blasphemy accusation is properly and fairly investigated so that mob justice does not prevail."
मुबारक है जिसके गुनाह धुल गए, मुबारक है जिसके गुनाह धुल गए, बख्शी गई जिसकी हर खता, बख्शी गई जिसकी हर खता। शुक्रिया है खुदा, शुक्रिया है खुदा, शुक्रिया है खुदा, शुक्रिया है खुदा। मुबारक है जिसके गुनाह धुल गए। मैं जितना खामोश रहा, मेरा गम उतना ही बढ़ा। मैं जितना खामोश रहा, मेरा गम उतना ही बढ़ा। रात और दिन मुझ पे खुदा, हाथ तेरा भारी था। मैंने अपनी खता को माना अपनी बदकारी को जाना मैंने अपनी खता को माना अपनी बदकारी को जाना मेरे खुदाया मेरी खता को तूने माफ किया शुक्रिया है खुदा शुक्रिया है खुदा शुक्रिया है खुदा शुक्रिया है खुदा मुबारक है जिसके गुनाह धुल गए
We've just listened to a current Urdu Christian song which really captured my ear as I was searching for gospel music which is being played and enjoyed in Pakistan right now. What did you think? As I prepare these programs, I am continually inspired by the beauty and diversity of worship music, especially when it reflects the heritage and ethnicity of the Christian believers in that country. Let's now hear the testimony of Shafia, a young woman in Pakistan, recorded by Voice of the Martyrs, USA.
Because I'm Christian, I face huge persecution. The Muslims kidnapped me, took me away and locked me in a room. They raped me, they beat me also. They were forcing me to convert to Islam. When I got the chance, when they locked my room, I was praying to Jesus Christ, please, release me from this place. My brother was very good, and he was a kind of leader in this village. Because when Christian girls were going to attend the church, Muslim boys were fooling around with the girls. It was Palm Sunday. The Muslims were saying, "You can't have a prayer service today." But my brother said, "I will give my life, but we will make sure that there will be a Sunday service." So they brought all of the girls and the Christian people, and my brother said, "Okay, go ahead, we are going to have a prayer service." But Muslims came and they beat pastor's wife also, and pastor's sons also, and they beat my brother also. My brother stood up against the Muslims, and later on, they took my brother away and they killed him. When my brother was here, in this world, we were very comfortable. No one was looking at us. The Muslims weren't looking at us. He was taking good care of us. And may God give him a good place in heaven. After him, we are facing a lot of problems. When he died, one of the Muslims came to me and was telling me, "We killed your brother. We can kill your other brother also." So after that, life was hard. They kidnapped me and were forcing me to convert to Islam. They were thinking that I might take revenge for the murder of my brother. That's why they were forcing me to convert to Islam. They took me, they beat me and they raped me. I was going with my mother and brother to visit some relatives. While on the road, two men came on a motorbike. They had a pistol in their hands. They fired in the air and told my mother and brother to get down in the field. They took me forcefully on the motorbike. Because of the murder of my brother, we needed money to fight his case in the court. We had no money, so we took a loan from the landlords, but that was not enough. Then my family, my brothers and sisters, everybody started working in the brick kiln. Because brick kiln owners also give loans. So we had some loans from him, and then we started working in the brick kilns, and we are still working. It's a very tough life on the brick kiln. You have to work all day making bricks. If sometimes you make less bricks, they beat you up. Finally, we were released from the brick kiln because VOM paid our debt. I have great peace in my heart now because I am with Jesus. I want that the young people, those who are working in the brick kilns in my village, they should also pray and come to Jesus. They will feel peace also. I am teaching Bible and giving the girls sewing skills so they can also feel peace in their lives.
And what can we do here in Australia, in the West, to stand with our sisters and brothers under persecution in Pakistan? Listen.
The most important thing is to pray for the Christian community in Pakistan. Pray that God bless them, God give them strength, God encourage them to face all these kind of persecution. And be thankful and be happy during the persecution also.
The most important thing is to pray for the Christian community in Pakistan. Pray that God blesses them, God gives them strength, God encourages them to face all kinds of persecution, and to be thankful and to be happy during the persecution also. And what does Shafia say to us in the West, and especially to young women?
I'll say to the young girls, pray, pray and pray. Read the Word. Stay close to Jesus Christ. You can pray with your family, with your brothers and sisters. Stay close together. Just pray.
Just pray. That is what our persecuted family is asking of us in the West. We can all do that, can't we? As we finish now, I also want to encourage you to write letters or cards of encouragement to Asia Bibi, who remains imprisoned and separated from her husband and children for violating Pakistan's blasphemy laws. You can write to her through prisoneralert.com. The site has been updated with her new prison address. You can also sign a petition to the Pakistani government on her behalf at www.callformercy.com. Please join me next week as we travel to Kenya. This is Helen Mottee for Eternity.
For eternity.
For Eternity is produced in the studios of Rima FM Port Macquarie.